Hello, welcome to Pride of Vine's YouTube/podcast, however you're consuming. If you're watching this, please subscribe and all the rest of it, all that lovely stuff. This week, I'm joined by Luke Turner. Luke, welcome back. We had you on a little while ago. Nice to have you again. How's it all going with you?
Nice to be back. Nice to be
sorry,
back.
You must have.
What? Sorry.
You must have missed me. I said, how's it going with you?
Yeah, okay. Just kind of stumbling into 2021, and it's all the same as last year, but a bit grimmer in some ways. Except West Ham haven't messed everything up yet.
Yeah, we're halfway through the season officially, and it's going pretty well, isn't it? In 2021, at least.
Exactly. How are you doing? Are you good?
Yeah, I mean, similar, right? So lockdown hasn't been great for anyone, but I'm just astonished at what's going on over at West Ham, especially given we're so used to gloom and doom. I guess, it's in bubbles itself, just like our dreams, they fade and die, and we're used to a bit of that. So this is new territory, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you kind of. I mean, I love that song. I think maybe we talked about that before, but like at the same time, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Sometimes, and you expect it to go to shit or us to suddenly slip up against. And I think particularly these recent games, like playing Burnley, and playing West Brom, they're the sort of games where you think, oh, we'd have done something stupid and lost. And I don't think we played particularly well in either of those, but we sort of ground out these results, and the Everton game as well, which you wouldn't have expected us to win necessarily. And that's what I'm finding really interesting about this is this we instead of what it's often be where you have it's just depressing and we're rubbish, but then we get these occasional flashes of brilliance and flukily beat somebody big, and that's great because there's a massive rush in that, isn't there? Some of those wins we've had over the years where you unexpectedly beat someone in the middle of a bad phase, and it's glorious that high you get from it. But actually this sort of like gritty, slogging, hard West Ham where Obama's head just appears every now and again, and closes down the opposition, is just quite satisfying. The gritty nature of it, which is just not what you associate with West Ham really in recent times, as long as I can remember. Grittiness.
Well, yeah. It's hard to get used to. It's hard to get used to what we're doing because you're right. What we're used to doing is kind of getting wins here and there against these kind of teams, and then getting the big ones that we're not expected to. And if you went across the last, I don't know how many seasons, like 5-10 seasons, and looked at the number of points that we took from big teams throughout the season, they were probably the points that kept us up. The unexpected ones. And then on paper, if you were to come up with an algorithm to determine what West Ham's kind of performance should be, on paper, these are the sort of teams that we should be beating. Actually, we should be beating the likes of Burnley, and we should be beating the likes of West Brom. But like you say, it's that West Ham thing to not grind out the gritty wins and to just kind of collapse under no pressure. It's like we thrive under pressure, and when there isn't any, we're like, fuck it.
And I think it's been really noticeable that when the opposition score this season, we don't just walk dejectedly back to the centre circle with heads down, which is what has always been which was very much the case under Pellegrini. We were able to sort of keep solid and keep a positive attitude, which I think is such a massive thing. I mean, you do get the impression from the way the players are on social media and the way they interact with each other and all the jokes and everything. It's like the team spirit seems really, really strong, and you think that can carry a team that maybe doesn't have the kind of fanciest players a very, very long way. That's that solidarity and that togetherness.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely camaraderie there, and there's definitely a unity. But I think we've actually started to accumulate quite a significant amount of quality in the squad. Not throughout, but you mentioned Ogbonna already. We've got Rice in the middle. We've got Souček We've got Sufal, who's been doing really well, Antonio, Bowen. So we've got some really good players in there.
Yeah.
The one thing that's consistently happened over the last 2 transfer windows is that the team has been made, I wouldn't say weaker, but it's been made a lot shallower. We really don't have as many options. So again, going back to the sort of West Ham kind of levels of expectation, I'm fully expecting more than one player to get injured and for the wheels to fall off on this whole thing. But while it's going on, it's weird. It doesn't feel like West Ham. I think against West Brom when they scored, the commentator said, I can't remember which one it was, but one of them said that it had been 7 hours and 11 minutes since we'd conceded a goal.
Yeah, that was good.
And I was like, really? and the whole time, when we're attacking, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing and I'm optimistic about what's going to happen. And I just think, this doesn't feel like the typical way of thinking when you're watching a West Ham game. You're usually like, oh, this is going to come to nothing. But instead you're like, again, I expect to score.
My one slight caveat with it all is I think I've been a bit frustrated. Though we've been grinding out these 1-0 wins, a lot of them where we actually should have won by more. It's just the final moment, people being selfish or messing it up or just making the wrong decision, not passing, going for it themselves. There's some sort of, like Yarmolenko is just... Yeah. He's so greedy. I kind of hope we get shot of him in the summer and bring someone else to be the backup for Bowen. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously we might be trying to play him as a striker if Antonio gets injured, and maybe he'll work in that role because he does it for the Ukraine. But I've just not been. He contributed to the second goal yesterday, didn't he? But I've just not been that impressed with him. He loses the ball quite a lot as well.
Yeah. Was it yesterday? I see the days are blurring into each other. Was it yesterday or was it against Burnley when he was on and he could have squared it and it would have been a goal and he instead took a shot direct at the keeper?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was against Burnley, wasn't it? And I'm finding that frustrating. And I think like Ben Rama, obviously he's desperate for his first goal. You can see it in him. He's just desperate. And he can be a bit selfish, but I understand why he wants to get his first goal. And, I've got a bit more leeway to him because I'm really impressed with, I think we thought he was going to be like a fancy player, but would he do the Moyes thing of working hard? But he does, doesn't he? He puts in
I wanted to ask you about this actually. Do you think that the reason that we've not seen from him what we expected or what perhaps a lot of people expected to see is because he's actually listening to his manager and doing what he's being told? Because it seems to me there's a lot less trickery. I mean, there's some good footwork going on there, but there seems to be less trickery and more trying to do his direct job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I wonder if it's. I was wondering about that because I was thinking, is it partly being in the Premier League? You can't, if you try some of that trickery, it just doesn't work with some of these players, and they're just going to be like, no, take the ball off you.
Yeah,
stop fucking
just
around.
Mug you off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've seen that happen a couple of times where he's tried to be fancy and he just gets two defenders just like that and take it off him. But I wonder if he's. I mean, he seems sort of young and eager and like a decent bloke. And I think with Moyes and the backroom stuff he's got there, I think that as a unit, that lot are just collectively responsible for our transformation. I wonder if you're right. Yeah, they're sort of saying now, don't worry about the fancy stuff. You need to track back. You need to do your defensive work. I think it's just like him and Rice actually with these kind of speculative boots, like really long shots. With that, at some point one of them is going to go in. Like poor old
Rice. The chances he had, Jesus, the marauding runs he goes on.
Yeah, like that. Was it against Burnley where we had that free kick at a really tight angle, and he just like tried curving it in almost sideways. Yeah. I mean, if that had gone in, and it's just, some of these attempts he's made would have been like wonder goals if they'd gone in, and you just think they're going to go in at some point. I think Ben Rama is
that really tight one where you thought, exactly. There's no way, crazy.
So my thing is, I think in some ways, when we're going forward, I'm actually thinking, is he just going to be bodged at the end? Because we are good at counter-attacking. I think we've been less reliant on set pieces actually in the last couple of games, from what I recall. Because it's been. Has it been less from corners and things like that? I think.
Yeah, I think it's been more sort of whipped in balls and stuff. And obviously
Yeah,
with Antonio back, it means that we've got that other outlet of, just kind of playing it through and let him run onto it.
yeah. I mean, yesterday that bit when he just ran forward, just boshing
Through that
everyone out of
guy.
the way. I just love watching that. It's just exciting as a spectacle and entertainment. Him charging along, and he's I think he's my favourite player, to be honest. I love him, and just seeing him just like smacking everyone out of the way. It's just glorious, isn't it? It's just so exciting.
I think it probably helps that he comes from more of a humble background to a lot of footballers. And there's a lot more of that now, isn't it? There's a lot more ability for people who work hard to work their way through the leagues into the Premier League and then become successful.
Yeah.
And I think that carries with it something a little bit different, a little bit of, I don't know if it's they're a bit more humble or they just appreciate it more. But he certainly does seem like a guy who works hard to get what he wants and a really nice fella.
Yeah, same with Bowen as well. Actually, if you look at his route from Hereford to Hull, and you hear about in the summer he was training by running on his family's fields. And how often do you hear like footballers with proper West Country accents? It's kind of because that bit of the world is so rugby focused, isn't it? Like round Hereford and all those kind of Gloucestershire, Wurzel places. I shouldn't say Wurzel place. That's very mean, is it? But like those rural places, that's proper rugby land, by and large. So it's interesting that he's come through from there. And I think you're right. It's like there's been all these players where we spent a lot of money on them. They just don't really seem to care. And what we've got with obviously with Antonio, with I think Rice and Bowen, and also Souček and Šufal. They're all people who are thrilled to be at West Ham, and they're playing really hard. I love watching Šufal, the way when he just charges up the right wing, and sometimes his crosses are a bit off or whatever, but he's just a tough player, and I love seeing him run forward. And his attitude is absolutely
the commitment's
fantastic.
there, isn't it? There's just commitment to their craft, and I think him and Souček, but the pair of them have got this thing where they're kind of like football hard men, but without the attitude. They're just go with it. Yeah, and actually Bowen as well, to a degree. They take the knocks, they go with it. If they're bundled over, they don't sort of like strop and throw their arms out. They're straight back up. They want to get on with the game. And I like that. And I think it does come from that thing of they see this as an opportunity and they're going to come in and take it. And I think Rice is similar because I don't know if the contract situation has changed, but I know that when he was given a senior contract, because he was so young, they didn't want him to go through the Reece Oxford route of getting loads of money and then not producing. So he was offered, I think, something like 40 grand a week, but then appearance-based money that took it up like a fair bit higher. So he was motivated to play. Now, I don't know if that's still the case. Maybe they've sorted it out. And if they haven't, they need to sort it out soon because he's definitely earned it. But that tells you a lot about someone's character when they say, I'm happy with that deal. Yeah, if it's based on how hard I work and how often I play, then I'm going to be motivated. And he has. He played every minute of last season, didn't he?
Yeah, and this now it's ridiculous. I mean, I think we do need to, and that's what you're saying. The thinness of the squad. We really need backup for him and Souček because they're vital to what we do.
They did look a bit knackered over Christmas, didn't they?
Yeah, and we've got another big congested run of fixtures coming up, haven't we? And you just think we really need to sort out that position. And also with the long view of what if either of them, because it's not just risk of Rice leaving now for big money, is the chance that Souček is going to be on. I mean, he is on the rate. I think some one of the big German clubs is sort of after him, aren't they? But
let's talk about this then, because you and I spoke previously about the fact that West Ham have been kind of flying under the radar. When we played Man United, I think if we'd won that game, I think questions would have started being asked. But that little blip almost helped keep us under the radar a little bit.
And losing 3-0 to Chelsea as well, even though that wasn't a 3-0, that game, even my Chelsea supporter mate said that wasn't a 3-0. That helped keep us down under the radar too, definitely.
But we're now going to get to the stage where what I'm hoping will happen is we get through this transfer window unscathed, and then we push on and we finish in such a good position that players want to stay. But I definitely imagine in the summer, Souček, like you say, Rice, maybe even Soufal, depending on how he finishes the season, we may end up having to get caught. Well, not get. We may end up having to fight off bids for these kind of players. That's the worry for me now, is that this is going to be another season like with Bilic, when we finished at the Bolin 7th, had a really great season, and then it just all went down the toilet because we didn't build on it.
Yeah.
I mean, that and especially that thin squad, if they come in with, say someone comes in with a 90 million bid for Rice, and we took it, what would we do with that money realistically?
Well, that's always the worry, isn't it? Does that money disappear because of, it's been a difficult season because of COVID, we need it to cover the toilet cleaning bills or whatever, and other euphemistic things, or does it get wasted on players who just aren't as good? Though I am more positive about our transfer record in recent times. Just since Moyes taking over, it's got a lot better.
Yeah, you say that though, but then from what I've heard from multiple sources, we've put in 4 bids for 4 strikers, all of which have been turned down, and one of which they've actually told us not to come back. So I'm guessing it was another Sully special, offering like a quarter of what they're worth and pissing off the. I wonder how many clubs there are who won't deal with us now, and that's going to be a problem.
There must be quite a lot. I mean, there's I mean, you hear that, don't you? Sort of people won't deal with us because they think Sullivan's dodgy, and he's always trying to pull a fast one and doing the blooming loan with an option to buy in instalments.
Or what will happen is, the other thing is that people will want to deal with us because they'll know that we've got 90 million quid and they'll take us to the cleaners.
Yeah. Was it somebody? I was talking to someone and they were saying about when Leicester sold somebody for a huge amount of money. Can't remember who, but
Was it Moyes?
Maybe, and they invested it in their training facilities rather than players, which I thought was really interesting. They've got.
We could definitely do with that at West Ham.
Yeah.
I think.
I think people. I keep hearing X says on their podcast that apparently it's not as bad as everybody makes out.
So what because obviously I was on the cursed OSB that everyone hated, and hopefully we can get past that in the future. But one of the things that Karen Brady said on that was that, it may not look the prettiest from the outside, but inside it has like all of the stuff that all of the modern gear, all of the medical stuff. Like inside it's kitted out as good as any other Premier League club. Yeah, which does make you think if that's the case, then maybe just tart up the outside a little bit.
Yeah, just do something. But I mean,
for years, players have been saying, though, haven't they? Treble Heath is not a good. Sorry to interrupt. They've said it's not a good place to train, and we had all those instances of injuries for years. And you're thinking, do we need to look at a better training ground? I mean, I think they moved to Rush Green, didn't they? So maybe things are a bit better now. Yeah,
I mean, Chadwell Heath's got a tree growing out of that. I remember going past it, because you go past it on the train, don't you? I remember looking at it, go, oh yeah, there's the ground, and trying to see what I could see, and there's a tree growing out the roof, and that's not a good sign, is it? For Leicester City, if they've got a tree growing out the roof of their one, it's because the architect put it there.
Yeah, exactly.
Not because a bird shat on it. But so I wonder, if and when right. But I mean, part of me, I do have this tiny bit of optimism that he definitely loves the club. He I think he respects what the club did for him when he was nowhere, and maybe he'll want to stay. Maybe he has a very different mentality to a lot of these other players. Jack Grealish has stayed at Villa. And he's a wanker, so
Yeah, but he's also a Villa fan, though, isn't he?
Yeah, but is Rice going to want to go to Chelsea to be a centre back? This is my thing with it. That's what they see him as, isn't it? But
that's not where the worry is now, though, is it? Because with them doing not particularly well, Lampard will probably be off soon, and there'll be someone else who'll come in who might want him where he belongs in the midfield.
But Lampard's the one who's the fan, isn't he? It's the board at Chelsea don't rate Rice, is what I keep hearing. Is that they
long may it continue then?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if he goes, I'd love it if he went to sort of Paris Saint-Germain or something. That somewhere like that. If he's going to go, I'd like him to go to Europe, to one of the really huge clubs. That would be that. And we get because if he does really well in England, for England in the Euros if they happen, which they probably will. That's going to boost his value.
I mean this with
considerably.
with absolutely no offence at all, but the idea of little nice English boy next door Declan Rice going to a foreign club, it just I just imagine these scenarios in my head of him not being able to speak the language and just like, you know, those videos he does with Mason Mount, and they just seem like a couple of nice lads who are on holiday in Ibiza or something. You could imagine them just, I could imagine they could make a documentary about him moving to another country, because it would just be hilarious.
Yeah, but I'd like him to do. I don't know. I mean, we have to just be hopeful, don't we? We keep getting through transfer windows without him leaving. We just have to hope it keeps going as long as possible. And if he does go, the money is invested in wisely and not used to cover COVID losses or something.
I mean, I just hope we don't lose him at all, because for how good he is, for the age that he is, for the attitude he applies to the game, I just think the 90, even if you've got 90 or 80 or whatever it is million, you'd recoup that over the years just by not selling him. Just having a player that good in that position is going to save you more money than you're going to get for him.
And I think if he can see progress, depends what he wants, doesn't it? Because obviously we can just pay him silly money, really. The amount of money we've saved on salaries with letting people go in overpay players. There's plenty of money in the salary kitty. I mean, I guess if he really wants to win the league and he really wants to win trophies, it's a bit unfortunate we've got such a tough next but one go in the cup, haven't we, really? Because I think we could have a good shot at the cup this year.
We've got to get past Doncaster first.
Let's
put that out there. Because that would be very West Ham to slip up against the big team.
But that's the thing, is that I feel more confident about that than I would normally.
It's a weird thing, isn't it? This sense of optimism. Like I was saying earlier, when I see us attacking like the other teams, like box or whatever, and we've got, we're attacking in 3s and 4s sometimes. You're like, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
but I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so on transfers though, let's just sticking with transfers for a minute. It was revealed recently that the Snodgrass transfer had an agreement in there which may fall foul of the rules. So I was looking into this earlier because I was sure it was the same rule as the Tevez one, and you read out the rule. It's rule number 17, isn't it? Premier League rule 17.
Yeah.
You read that out as I was looking at the rule that we breached in 2007, which was rule 18 at the time. So the rules must have changed order because they're exactly the same wording. So it says, no club shall enter into a contract which enables any other party to that contract to require the ability materially to influence its policies or the performances of its team in league matches. So under the Tevez thing, this is what people always get wrong. It wasn't anything to do with third-party ownership. The fact was that Kia Drabkin could sell Tevez without our say-so. And by doing so, he can materially influence our team selection. So actually, if you look at it, the rule we breached is absolute bollocks. Because, it's okay, so he can sell Tevez, but only during a transfer window. So, but whatever. So that's how that rule was broken. Now, we've just done the same thing to West Brom, arguably, because we've affected their team selection, albeit for one game.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, do we get punished less harshly because it's only affected one game, more harshly because we've done it in the past? What's going to happen?
I mean, I was very worried about it last night. I was like, as soon as that we won the game, I was in a good mood. Then that came up, and you're like, oh, typical West Ham. We've done some. Sullivan sat there doing some dodgy deal. Would it have been that bad to have Snodgrass play against us? I mean, he knows the tricks of the trade or whatever, but whatever. I think we would have still been all right. It would be really annoying if we got docked points or had to replay it because of that. People, what I've seen today, people seem to think it's not that bad a issue. Some other people have done pretty much the same thing and got a fine. I can't remember who it was, but somebody got fined for it. I just say, why did West Brom tweet about it? Why did Sam Allardyce say it? I mean, what an
Because he
idiot.
hates David Sullivan, because he's a dickhead.
Yeah, that's
I don't
true,
know.
but it could end up coming to bite him on the arse, because
Absolutely, yeah.
if it would, it's probably gonna affect us more than them, because they were desperate to. We said, fine, we'll happily sell you Snodgrass, but it has to be after this game. Well, the game yesterday, but apparently they really wanted him for the Wolves game, and so they said, all right, we won't play him against you. So I think it's more on them than us. So if there is a punishment, I mean, if it means us missing out on Europe or whatever, that would be a piss. But I can't see them deducting points over something so trivial, unless they just hate West Ham. They want to punish us. Like you say, they feel we've done it before with Sheffield. I wonder what the Premier League think of Sullivan, given that everyone else thinks he's Sullivan and Bailey. Yeah. Everyone else thinks,
I mean, that's the thing. Like you said, that we could have just said, well, no, right, we won't sell him to you until after the game then. That would have been a much safer thing to do. I'm not sure why we would have taken a gamble to do something different.
No, I mean, presumably we've got lawyers who would have. We must have some decent.
Some lawyers who go, this looks familiar.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's another thing where we haven't actually. One of the dodgy ways the club is run, we've got some shifty lawyers. I mean, I don't know. I went on a massive. My friend's writing a book about Essex and Essex identity, and I went on a bit of a Wikipedia wormhole about some figures in the kind of East End gangland that he's writing about, and they can end up connecting back to Sullivan. There's a guy called David Hunt who runs a big criminal cartel based in Canning Town, who's a West Ham fan, and he sued the Sunday Times for calling him a gangster. And guess who lent him £1 million to pay for his libel trial? Which he lost, David Sullivan. So you're a bit like, interesting. So maybe he has got shifty lawyers who don't actually read these agreements and check things. It's that sort of, and that he likes
but his personal lawyers and the club's lawyers, you'd hope, are not the same people.
You would hope so, wouldn't you? But who knows with
commercial law and sports law, I guess, and criminal law are two
very different.
Different. It's like saying, I don't need to, I don't know, go and see a neurosurgeon because my mate's a gynecologist.
Yes,
it's not the same.
Well, I won't put it past him. He's got some mate who's a lawyer who he has look over everything because it's cheaper. He doesn't, or something like that. But they must have looked at it and gone, are we going to get in trouble for this? What's the risk? What's the maximum penalty we're going to get? What have other clubs who've done the same thing? Because it must happen. I mean, you can do it with a loan, can't you? That's fine. You're allowed to. You're allowed to do it with a loan.
Well, it's usually the terms of a loan, isn't it? You can't play against your parent club.
Yeah, but
why didn't we do that? Why don't we just loan him short term to them until after yesterday's game? Could we have done that?
Yeah, why couldn't they do that? Loan with option to buy. He loves that, Sullivan, doesn't he? Why he could have offered them that?
He's so familiar with that. You think he would have actually done it, but yeah, okay. I mean, well, look, we'll find out what happens there. I mean, whatever happens, good for the Snodgrass that he's actually getting full games, and he's a lovely guy.
I think I really love. He was one of my favourite players. I love watching him, and he just seems like an amazing bloke. And you get the impression he might be someone who will end up in management, which could be interesting or whatever. But again, it does show that we're that level above West Brom. We're the one kind of going, oh, you could have him. He barely plays for us. He's not quite good enough to get in our team anymore. But you might need him to stay up. Whereas I was.
It's a transition, isn't it?
Yeah, I was worried at the start of the season we would be down the sort of around the level of West Brom, and we're not, and that's a good sign of progress, really. I think that he's gone there.
Yeah, and good luck to him. I just hope we can replace, because back to what I was saying earlier, my fear is that there will be a injury or multiple injuries. Sorry, an injury, not a injury, or multiple injuries, and we'll be in a tight spot. But I mean, I suppose the frustrations we had before, like we've had with Allaire, was that we actually had someone who could step in, but they were completely ineffective. So I suppose, I don't know, is it better to get rid of players who aren't contributing and struggle than it is to have them there to patch things up. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is where, in my optimistic view, this is where your academy ought to work. It ought to be providing the players to fill those gaps and fill those roles in case of injury. You know, like I think poor old Mipo Odebeko, he was probably going to get some minutes last night. He was probably going to play on Saturday, but he's got COVID. You know, this highly rated striker who just keeps
I
nearly
did
getting
wonder
his
why he wasn't
breakthrough.
on the bench yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. I think he got injured just when he was about to come through, and then now he's got COVID, or he's isolating because of COVID. I feel sorry for him. That must be tough, because I'd like to see him play. I mean, I bet Sullivan would like to, because if he played last night and done well and plays on Saturday and did well, Sullivan would be able to go, right, I don't need to spend any money on a striker. Even though he really does. I mean, we have, what do most teams have? 3 or 4 strikers. We've got, I guess you could count him, even though he's not played, but Antonio is a makeshift striker. He's very good at it. But
that's the thing. You could argue we have none. You could make the argument we have no strikers at all.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So just sticking with the transfer window for a bit, because before we started recording, you were saying that you found the transfer window really interesting and kind of mad.
It's like, every window, it's the fever of it. It's like the gold rush fever or something. Everybody's like, here's this potential striker who can possibly save us, and somebody puts a thing up on YouTube, and then there's some analysis by someone, and then boom, oh no, Sullivan's not bid enough money, that's over. Oh, they've just signed someone else. But I remember last winter window, everyone was hopping mad again about Fernandes, and we were going to sign Fernandes, and he was going to be the saving grace of the team for the rest of the season. He was going to stop us getting relegated. Then Spurs swooped in and nicked him and signed for them, and everyone was like, "Oh, this club, West Ham, we just can't do transfers. GSB out, etc." Which I agree with, but there's this sort of level of panic. And then on the last minute, we signed Souček and Bowen, who have been the 2 best signings in years and saved our season. It was all just done at last minute. And I think people just get in a panic. I don't understand why people expect the club is going to be broadcasting like, "Hello, everyone, this is who we're looking for." I mean, they are we are a leaky club. But at the same time, I think people need to kind of calm down a little bit about
we've got ingrained disappointment, I think, and the expectations have been kind of beaten into us, because I'm not going to name any names, but I'm dealing with a lot of other supporters groups at the moment as part of the overall kind of how West Ham and groups like ours communicate, and it's hard. It's hard to kind of get things in order. It's hard to find consensus. And I think a lot of the time, the default for people, just because of past experience, is, well, there's something going on, or it's about to fall apart because we've not heard anything or whatever. So I think as West Ham fans, and I don't know if it's a complete kind of since the dawn of time thing, or it's just since this ownership kind of stepped in, there is that expectation of disappointment. So I think a lot of people will go into the transfer window expecting to be disappointed already. Then they get the rumours about this player and that player. Then we don't sign those players, so then they go back to, well, I should have stuck to being disappointed, and that just kind of like makes it worse and worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of it is a social media thing. There's probably a lot of West Ham fans who aren't on social media, just sort of don't, they're not. It's not quite as panicky a thing, because social media really does churn that over. The kind of expectation and the excitement. And you can't help like that Dia who we were supposed to be out for, and it seems like a cheap option, but also really good. He already does the crossed hammers when he scores for some reason, and then that's suddenly gone quiet, and now we're all in for the Moroccan player. So it's hard not to get caught up in it, but at the same time, I kind of, this is where I had to have a bit of faith in Moyes and what Moyes says about not wanting to just sign someone for the sake of it and have another flop striker to add to the long list that like literally every
49, isn't it?
Yeah, just every football publication is publishing at the moment, because we're looking for a striker, which, you know, we don't want another addition to that big long list, do we?
Yeah, it's joining
we want
the
someone
likes
who
of Mido and Tristan and Ilan.
Exactly.
I think some of it perhaps is like it's a God, this will make me sound old, but I think it's like a modern thing, right? It's a sensory overload and immediate gratification. We're used to, you know, apps and things giving us the things we want. We need to know things. We want things. You know, if I want to know the answer to a question, I can find out straight away. And when the internet goes down and you're trying to find something on your phone, it's like, you know, if I want a pizza, I can get one. I can order one. Yeah. And it's that thing of I you know, we're used to instant gratification. So when someone dangles a possibility of a transfer, you want it done. You want to know. You know, you actually see this in the comments where people, you know, the club will put out something about, oh, here's a video of the players, I don't know, mucking around in the canteen or even like training, and you'll just get a list of wankers who are just replying, announce so and so, announce so and so, announce like petulant children in the back of a car saying, "Are we there yet?" And it's like, look, sorry, but you don't get what you want just because you're shouting, right? We all want good players. We all want good signings, but I kind of wish we'd go back. God, this does make me sound old, doesn't it? I wish we'd go back to a time where you didn't have all of this social media, you know, kind of rumor mill, if you like, going about who we're going to sign and the leaks and all the rest of it. I'd like, you know, just to the club to go, oh, we've just signed this player, and we know nothing about it. The club to do its business in private, conducts its business behind the scenes in a way that, you know, it doesn't work, not just the fans, but the market into a feather as well around, you know, okay, well, they really must want this player, therefore we're going to put our prices up. If it's all done nice and quiet in the background, everyone gets what they want at the end of the day, and people don't get overstimulated.
Exactly. That's what I thought. It was the way we signed that, you know, it's the kind of speculative signing of a centre back, but Alves was just announced.
Yeah,
you know, we've signed out, and I think I'd heard we were interested in him and stuff like that. But it was just like, here he is, doing his picture. Don't think he got a video, but he got a picture. You know, and I sort of I like it more like that. Like you're saying, I do. It's so much of it is to do with social media and the internet driving everybody crackers, isn't it? But
yeah, I just heard a ding dong. Sorry, I just kind of, if I look startled, then I heard a ding dong. I think it's my front door. Yeah, it is. It's all right. Someone else is getting it.
All right.
But yeah, it is madness, and I don't know. I think there's, you know, we've got the rules in place around tapping up and things like that, which should be there to stop these kind of rumors going out there, but they don't do anything.
No.
You kind of think if those rules were enforced properly and clubs were punished for putting these, you know, leaking these stories, I don't know, I think things might be a little bit calmer and they might go.
I think it's like, because the world of agents just seems like Wild West. It's that they have loads of power. It's totally unregulated, or what regulation there is not properly enforced. And I think we probably get that worse than everyone else, because we don't have a proper scouting network. We don't have a director of football, and Sullivan is known for having his favoured agents and all of that sort of stuff. So probably I reckon it's that we get it so badly because of the situation we're in, where agents have so much power. And
it just seems so odd to me, because for me, if you wanted to buy, you know, as a consumer, you want to go out and buy something, I don't know, a dishwasher, right? And your favorite shop was Curry's, because does Curry's exist anymore? It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you went around the corner to Curry's, it's your favorite, and it was like, I don't know, 300 quid, but you saw it on AO.com for 250. You're not going to tell me that you're going to go and pay 50 quid extra just because you prefer Curry's.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't get why this happens in football. Why is it that we prefer to use certain agents? Like, surely the player you want is the player you want.
Yeah. I don't get it. And it should be the player that the manager wants to fit his system. And I think the departure of Haller is just, that's a case in point. You know, the level of rowing that was going on West Ham social media over Haller, and people defending him, but it was just obvious he didn't fit the system. Moyes didn't buy him. He didn't want him. he didn't fit with what Moyes was trying to do. It was never. Why should a manager change his entire team just for one bloke? That's madness. Thinking like that. And I do suspect that Haller being a bit crap this season was partly because he was already talking to his old manager at I always want to say Ajax, like the beach, but Ajax, and that they signed in. It was like window opens, boom, signed off. That's an efficient bit of business they did there. And thankfully, aside from the fact we now don't have a backup striker, we're a better team without him in it. You can just see that from the last 2 games. But just even last 3 games, I can't see him really getting on very well in that muddy pitch in Stockport. He'd been even more like a stuck tree than normal. But and I think that's why the Sullivan, who have you got trusted agent for sale? What we need is Moyes going, right, I've got my system, I need this bloke because he's going to fit the system. And that's maybe why I'm more optimistic, because if Moyes is in charge, I'm more confident.
I mean, this is one thing where I would give Sam Allardyce some credit, is that when he managed us, all right, we didn't like the system and we didn't like the play, but he always picked the right player for the position rather than trying to force things together. You look at some of the squads that he put out and you'd be like, those aren't the 11 best players that we have, but they're the 11 best that are going to play together in the best way. The sum is greater. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And I think Moyes is similar. What he's done with Masuaku and Cresswell. You could argue that we could have a back 4 if we had a right back with Masuaku's kind of speed and Cresswell's delivery, but we don't. So we have both those players instead, and it's worked. Obviously, we don't have Masuaku at the moment, but so I think he looks at what we need on the pitch rather than this guy costs us 45 million, so let's put him on.
Yeah, I mean, there is that element where I think with Sullivan, it's all about the flashy and the show to some extent. Look at the way he dresses with his expensive COD dictated military thing. I mean, I've seen his house up the road from Uncle and Auntie. The whole, you see if you can see the inside of his house on the Sun website. It's like he is someone who's seduced by cash and things being flashy and things like that.
He's basically Del Boy.
Totally.
But he actually made it.
Totally. Yeah. He is. He thinks he's a wheeler dealer. I mean, a businessman. And the lesson is Del Boy never ended up with the coin, did he?
Yeah, but let's be honest, David Sullivan has. He's I'm not saying that he's a good football club owner, but clearly the decisions he's made in business have.
How hard is it to? I think we talked about this last time. Tits and
property.
Buildings. That's you can't lose.
I read something that a journalist put on Twitter the other day. Actually, I think it was today. God, see, the days do blend into each other. Where he was saying that he thinks David Moyes doesn't get the recognition that he deserves. And he kind of went through the things that he's achieved. And he said all of this whilst making a profit in the transfer window.
I saw your reply,
Yeah, I don't think that's through David Moyes' choice that we've made a profit in the transfer window. I think, actually, if anything, it's more impressive that David Moyes has done as well as he has, despite the fact that his squad has been made weaker and, well, not weaker, let's say shallower and shallower over the last two transfer windows.
Yeah, I thought you were
makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought you were spot on replying to that, because it's not the manager's job to make a profit in the transfer window. That should be a director of football's job, with help and from the board. If you could keep making, I mean, I think Leicester are good at that, aren't they? And they keep making a profit, then bringing in new players quite cheaply and building them up and selling. I mean, that's a great way to run a business. I don't think. You're totally right. Moyes has not been properly backed at all.
Imagine if they hadn't got rid of him and brought Pellegrini in, if they kept Moyes and given him all the money they gave to Pellegrini.
Yeah, I mean, Moyes did sign Jordan Hugill. I mean, he's not totally unblemished, did he?
All right, everyone's allowed a bad. Everyone's allowed a bad day.
But I mean, if you look, I was looking at. There's a table now. Somebody put up the average points per game of our Premier League managers, and Moyes is now top of that with 1.368 points per game.
Well, remember when he said winning is what I do, and then we lost loads of games and everyone laughed at him. Well, who's laughing now? Yeah. All of us, hopefully, because it's been a good ride so far. So the other thing that I have written down here before we go, and we can make this brief if you like, but you mentioned penalties.
Yeah, we don't get any.
We don't get any. So obviously this is prompted by was it Souček yesterday, wasn't it? Who I think it was quite a clear cut penalty. And it wasn't even looked at, and we said before that he's a bit of a hard man player, a bit rough and tumble. So I think even more so it should have been looked at, because he's not the kind of player to go down and just kind of lay there. No. Prostrate on the floor.
I mean, and that's what I love about our team. Actually, is in a league full of divers, and it's. I mean, look at Villa. That's part of their tactic. They must work on diving. Look at Salah. In a league where diving is such a big thing, and winning penalties, like for Man U, winning penalties is such a tactic. We don't do that. I mean, I think there's two things, isn't it? We just don't seem to get the decisions. And we're not that kind of team, and that's to our credit. But at the same time, it would be quite nice to have some penalty. But with Noble not on the pitch,
I was going to say, no Mark Noble. Who's going to take him?
Who is our? We've always had like Dix, and then we had Noble, just these kind of solid penalty takers, like cannoning it in. I wonder who we have now. Who's our reliable penalty taker?
Antonio took one, didn't he? So Noble stepped back and let Antonio take one last season, because I think it was something like if he scored that, he got a
special bonus.
And I seem to remember him blasting it in, but I don't recall if it was
that was that the last one we had. I think was that the last penalty we had?
No, I'm sure Noble's taken one since then.
We had one since? It just is a bit. There was another thing, somebody had done a table of like if Liverpool hadn't had any penalties, where they'd be in the table and we were ahead of them. And you don't want to be like paranoid or anything or bitter, but there must be a unconscious bias in officials towards big clubs.
A very conscious bias. I'm not sure it's unconscious, if I'm honest.
There was somebody did Antonio's celebration when he was doing the back crawl.
Yeah,
it was a forfeit, but somebody had photoshopped his tweet, and it was saying that he was doing it in tribute to all the other players in the league who were winning, getting penalties through their diving and swimming impressions, which I thought was something like that, which I thought was quite good.
Talking about the table, I'm just looking now. So we are 6 points. I mean, obviously we've got more games played, one more game played, but we're 6 points off the top of the table. And I don't expect that, this isn't, me getting ahead of myself. I don't expect that we're going to suddenly storm it and win the league. But what a change in form, in behaviour, in possibility for West Ham.
Yeah, exactly. And given that, I think that it felt like the plan this season was not being a relegation battle. Next season, go for mid-table, bit more consolidated, and the season after, go for Europe. We're a bit ahead of schedule, I feel like. I mean, we're obviously going to have another wobble, like you say. If we get injuries to key players, that is going to really badly affect us.
Well, we'd be really lucky if we get through the rest of the season without one.
Yeah, totally, absolutely, and so we aren't. I think we're going to be lucky if we keep up this level. But it's like, do you watch the West Ham clips? I think they're I love them. That guy who does
the alternative commentary thing.
The alternative commentary thing.
Yeah, and he calls Rice, was it the Basmati Billy Bonds?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like the one today was particularly good, because I love all the little characters that come in, like the astronaut and Tiddles the cat, and then Jesus and the names he has. What is the diabetic Neil Warnock was very cool for Sam Allardyce. I thought that was very nasty, but it did make me laugh. And what's he called? Dawson, the blue passport Beckenbauer. Was it blue passport Beckenbauer or something?
Yeah.
But he always, at the end of that, he always says,
we
how
are
many
massive
points to go till we're safe.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And it's worrying about 8 points to not have your life ruined by that worry of relegation. It'd be really hard for us to get relegated now, or be.
Yeah, I mean, in the commentary, they said, realistically, West Ham only need 3 more points to stay up.
Yeah.
And if they don't get that by the end of the season, they deserve to go down.
Yeah, we would, to be honest. But, it just feels good. I mean, we have to manage our expectation, don't we? We really do. But
we fly so high, reach the sky.
Yeah. And I'd like us to be. What are you thinking about Doncaster then? What's your prediction?
Look, see, I want to say no. I'm going to say that I think we'll win, but that's not a kind of a cocky. I think we're going to win. I think we'll win because, as we showed against Stockport, we just put the work in, and it might take a while to get the goal, and it might not be pretty. But as you said earlier, it's a gritty team. It's a gritty team that's willing to work. And I think maybe overwork at times, to your point that we are sort of winning 1-0 recently. And there's times where you think we should have scored. Perhaps we've taken too much time. Sometimes you think, right, if they'd just taken the shot first time rather than dicking about with the ball, we probably would have scored. So I think maybe we overwork, but I do feel that they are a professional outfit, and I think that our team will, and I think Moyes is going to take it seriously as well. I think he's going to play a strong squad, so I expect us to win it. But the way things are going, I don't expect us to thrash them, even though it is lower league opposition. I think it probably will be like a 1-0 or a 2-0.
Yeah, that's my feeling, and I think he needs to rest some people for this one as well. I think there's so many games coming up, and then if we do beat them, then if we get through this round, and then we've got Liverpool or Manchester United, we have to throw the kitchen sink at that game, don't we? That's our biggest game since we sort of avoided the Watford game last year. That to me is such a massive game. As long as we get past Doncaster, I'm not counting my chickens. But
there are players that we can rest, right? So our centre backs, we've got waiting in the wings. We've got Balbuena and Diop.
Yeah.
Not suggesting we change them both, but we've got that option. Obviously, we've got Johnson who can come in at fullback. I'm guessing that Noble may start.
I'd have thought so. I think I wouldn't mind seeing him start there.
Give Rice a break, perhaps.
Yeah.
So we've got options, but again, I'm just trying to think now. I couldn't name a full alternative 11.
No, that's when it starts getting a bit. That's when you realise it's when I listen to other matches and it's sort of like there's 4 changes. And you're like, gosh, imagine be able to do. And
they talk about introducing 5 subs again. 5 subs will be useless to us.
Yeah, exactly. We'll bring in one of the keepers just for a laugh.
Play them up front.
Of them. But I'm confident about the Doncaster, but I don't think. I think we are due a sort of like absolutely thrashing someone at some point soon, given that we did at the start of the season with Wolves and Leicester, of all people.
So weird.
But I don't think we're gonna. I think Doncaster will be careful and gritty, and we'll try and make sure of it rather than going overboard, trying too hard.
Yeah, I think that's it. Just keep it focused and professional, get the job done.
Yeah, that's what we want,
and then move on to the next one. Hopefully.
Yeah.
God, let's hope so. All right. Well, I think that's about it. Time to wrap up. Thanks so much for joining me, Luke. It's been really nice talking
Jim.
to you.
Thanks very
everyone,
much.
get online, Google Luke. Actually, there's loads of Luke Turners, aren't there? But this one in particular does writes for who do you write for, Luke? Primarily BBC.
I do stuff for my own website, The Quietus, The Guardian, and BBC. I did a piece on the LGBT football support group, which I met you and all the rest of the Pride of Irons. And then for all Essex-based West Ham fans. I wrote a book about Epping Forest and sexuality. So, that's the adjacent interest to West Ham. I think West Ham actually mentioned in it at some point. But
I love people's interests out, because this is the thing. Football brings so many people from different parts of the collective consciousness together. And when you look at people's interests outside of football, you're like, oh right, okay, football and books about Epping Forest and sexuality. Why not?
There's a lot of. I mean, I do conservation work for the Epping Forest Conservation Volunteers, where we go and help maintain the forest landscape. And there's West Ham fans in that group as well. So
we're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah, exactly.
Just keeping it incognito until we actually do something successful. No, it's been lovely to talk to you, Luke. Thanks for joining us. Anyone who's watched this far, like and subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll catch you later. Come on, you are.